Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special bonus edition here at Post Wrestling. I'm John Pollock, and I'm joined by Wai Ting. We're coming at you on a Sunday night, a non-pay-per-view Sunday night, but we wanted to check in with everybody. And Wai, I also want to chat with you. I feel like I'm not going to see you for a while.
Probably not. Yeah. That doesn't mean you might not see me through a webcam.
It's just not the same way. I mean, you come over here multiple times a week. I mean, it's I might not see you for a long time. So I just want to chat with my friend tonight.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it's I think in times like these, it's definitely nice to hear a familiar voice, and it's nice to be able to hear yours, and maybe for some of our listeners, it's nice to even hear ours. So, I might not be able to see you in the flesh, but I feel like you'll be hearing my voice a whole lot over the next several weeks.
Yeah, there may be a lot of us in the weeks to come. We're going to get into like all the latest stuff that's going on, and we're going to be joined by two guests on the show. I had announced earlier today Andrew Thompson would be joining us, and well, we haven't announced it yet, but we'll have a second guest joining us as well. I think that people could maybe do some by process of elimination. I mean, to me, when there's a crisis, there's one man to call, and he will be joining us in about 10 minutes time or so. But Wai, you and I have not done a show together, at least since Thursday. So number one, how was your birthday? And number two, what have the last couple of days been like on your end?
Yeah, what an interesting question. I mean, at the rate we're moving, it just feels like,
doesn't Thursday feel like a month ago? This week feels like it was an entire month since Wednesday.
So I just remembered, the phone call you and I had last Saturday. So not yesterday, but like the last Saturday, you, me, and Robert talking about like, oh, all this stuff is going on. Like, we didn't know what the status of WrestleMania was. Like, what were we going to do with our Tampa show? And I think in the conversation that the three of us had at that point, we made the decision to proceed with it.
But we were very hesitant like a week ago.
Very, yeah. I guess we had just, whatever the decision was, like at that time, it was like, okay, we were going to proceed with the trip. Boy, does that feel like it was ages ago, because I can't envision myself now even entertaining the thought of even stepping into an airport. Man, I shudder at the thought of even like, stepping into like a subway. So I can't imagine. I can't believe how much, like, not just my opinion, but I think like, the broad opinion has really changed in the week. It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go into like too much stuff, but like we had like a family member who had just flown to Europe on Monday, and he has gone through just an unbelievable process to get back here. And you can imagine what the stress level was in this entire week, and is now back in Canada, but is on his way north of the city to self-isolate now for the next 2 weeks away from everybody. So, I mean, it's affecting everybody. I think everyone is going through this in varying degrees at the moment, and it's like really settling in that this is something that is it's not something that it's just going to magically disappear in a week. People are settling into the reality of this is what life is going to be like for at least the foreseeable future. And hopefully it's not an excessive amount of time, but this isn't going away in a week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I feel like that. I feel like that was always like maybe a part of the conversation, but I don't think it's really settling into a lot of people's heads into now. And maybe for some people, it's still not settling in.
Dude, there's still some people that, it's, I don't know if the severity has hit everybody, and, everyone's going to have, I guess, mixed thoughts, because in this day and age, everybody has an outlet to express their opinion, and it's going to be a wide range of it. I would say, though, that the majority of most rational people are treating this with the severity that I think it entails as well. And we're recording this just after the Center for Disease Control and Prevention has just put out a recommendation that for the next 8 weeks, I'm just going to read it here, in accordance with its guidance for large events and mass gatherings, the CDC is recommending that for the next 8 weeks, organizers, whether groups or individuals, cancel or postpone in-person events that consist of 50 people or more throughout the United States. Events of any size should only be continued if they can be carried out with adherence to the guidelines for protecting vulnerable populations, hand hygiene, and social distancing. When feasible, organizers could modify events to be virtual. And there's more to the statement there that I actually tweeted out earlier. But to me, Wai, I think that this recommendation, like, we kind of have, I think, a mixed opinion from most about specifically on combat sports, because they are at the center, at least of the sports world, kind of in our lane of companies that have opted to go through with events from WWE, AEW, and the UFC primarily, that I think there are some that are viewing this as they're trying to provide escapist entertainment and the show must go on. I think that there's some defense of that versus the concern others are showing. I think there's now kind of a line where any kind of nobility to that, it's kind of treading into the stubborn and somewhat irresponsible that we're continuing these at this point. And I just feel with each day that's passing, it's going more and more to the latter. And that's my opinion of it.
Oh, yeah. Like, I know that's always kind of WWE's, go-to line, like where, they love like doing things in the face of panic, I suppose, because they, as they say, they want to put smiles on people's faces. And I think if you know this, if you follow this company long enough, you know that that's just PR. I'm sure there's some truth to it as well, but they're also.
I think it's very much in their branding now of WWE will always be here. I think that's something that we go back to how they handled post 9/11.
Well, listen,
I think like there is certainly that belief that they are doing a service for their fan base, but I think it's
if they weren't getting paid, John, do you think they would be doing these shows?
Yeah, I think that's certainly a factor in all of this.
Of course, I don't think they would be.
I do feel that WWE, just looking at their track record, I do think like there is something that they feel is patriotic in the sense of what they're doing. I think that Vince McMahon does believe in that. I will add this, and I was told this by several people that were there at the Performance Center on Friday, that like it was conveyed, like anyone that does not want to be here can go home, no repercussions. Like it is not, no one is being forced to do these shows, is kind of how it was implied to me, which is very similar to what we had heard reported about the message Tony Khan gave to the locker room. But at the same time, like you and I both know, Wai, that if your leadership is saying, hey, we're all going to be at work, we're going through with these shows, it doesn't have to be stated, but there is that, it's kind of implied that, you know what, this is the team is moving forward with this. And are you going to be straying from that, or are you going to be on board for this? And I feel that it's almost one of those where you have to protect the athletes from themselves and kind of eliminate that decision. And that's where leadership to me is defined by, in difficult situations, making those difficult choices for the good of everybody and not just thinking about your larger fan base or existing contracts or anything like that. Like, let's look at the health, well-being, and just peace of mind that it would give a lot of these performers, their families that are probably concerned about them being on the road, that it's, to me, just the right call to make at this time. And then we're going to deal with the fallout of how we're going to fill these hours, what we can use, like just with our archive. And there are options that are out there. The idea of doing these empty arena shows, to me, it just feels, to me, not the right call, even if some may be looking at it that they want to see the company go through with these.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what's involved with, travel with some of these shows. I mean, certainly a lot of people will be traveling in, and I feel like at this point, I don't know what the recommendation is from the government itself, but can they not string a show together with locals that are in the area around the PC?
I mean, there's enough Florida-based people with the company that, yeah, I guess you could. But again, that goes to, you're eliminating some risk by they're not getting on planes and traveling. There's still, there is still an assumed risk here.
Yeah, right.
And it will certainly, you look at it. Is it high risk, low risk? I mean, it's to me, you are just opening that. We're talking about golf. Golf is shutting this down. You know what I mean? And the idea that I'm going to watch an MMA card where guys are sweating and bleeding on one another, and professional wrestling where it's by its very nature, you are working in concert and in contact with another human being. I don't know. It just seems to me that why are we taking this risk at this point? Is it necessary?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, these are big questions, and I think it's I don't see WWE backing down lightly from, continuing to work.
I think it's been established that they're going to have to be forced not to do these shows, because as long as the decision is theirs, they're going to move forward with this.
Sure, yeah. And even then, though, like you said, I think there are a lot of different creative ways that they can produce content. But anyway, it's a different conversation, I think.
But I think this CDC recommendation, I mean, to me, it's the next nail in the coffin of WrestleMania.
Yeah. Certainly. I was pretty. I didn't think it was going to happen either way, but yeah, we shall see.
The Hillsborough County Commissioner has stated that they're hoping the WWE makes this decision, but if not, they may have to pull the plug themselves. And again, I really don't know what the answer is of what is the financial liability of one side pulling the plug versus the other. And I think that's certainly an important point to look at all of this. And you can go beyond WWE, that in so many different walks of life at this point, that so many people are looking at the financial implications of what this means to them. And that becomes a big decision-making process for you, that if I'm going to close down my business, the financial impact that's going to have on me, that people are forced to choose between what is most healthy for me versus the financial burden I'll be placing myself in by putting my health first. And that goes across the board. And it's very tough to see, but that's a choice, that's a reality for a lot of people that they have to make.
It's a real tough predicament a lot of these people are being caught in, not just, of course, in this industry, but plenty of businesses that are, have to consider whether or not to continue operation. It sucks. It really sucks. And there's, again, no, I think, easy answer. I would think that by this point, I feel like a lot of people are expecting all of this to not go down. But maybe it's just more of a technical game that they're kind of waiting for to play out.
So at this point, Wai, we're going to welcome in not one, but two guests to the show. First up, he is the man you know and love at postwrestling.com. Andrew Thompson is with us. Andrew, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, John and Wai. I appreciate you guys having me on, man, per usual. So let's get into it.
Yes, and whenever there is a crisis out there, I think that everyone just wants to see the light flash into the heavens, and we call for help. And that is why the one and only Nate Milton here, the king of the intro that I cannot possibly replicate. Nate Milton, come make sense of the world for us.
What is going on, Brother Pollock, Brother Ting, and of course, the youngest in charge, Brother Andrew Thompson? I know the postmarks out there might be going through the darkest of nights. But as Kendrick Lamar once said, we gonna be all right.
That's why we need Nate, just to soothe everyone's fears, bring us all back down. It is your audio version of a deep breath. That is what Nate Milton is here to provide everyone for. And I wanted to start off with you guys. Andrew, just for those unfamiliar, maybe if you can just kind of share what's going on in your area and sort of what the last couple of days have been like for you, just on a personal level, dealing with this.
It's been sort of, I wouldn't call it a panic per se from my perspective, but I know a lot of people are in that panic mode. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen all the pictures and stuff on social media with people just completely getting everything from every supermarket, giant, anything of the sort. Like, that stuff is completely going on in my area. As far as schools goes, those have shut down. Colleges have closed down for the rest of the semester. People are taking this pretty seriously, as they should, and things are going exactly how you would think they would go in a situation such as this.
And how about you, Nate?
Pretty similar to Andrew. Like, I'm only a couple hours south of Brother Thompson, and I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, and it's kind of crazy even to say it, is I don't think that most Americans, and I'm including people in Virginia, took this thing seriously until the NBA decided to call it quits. And that was kind of like this shot heard around the world, or at least heard around the country, where it's like, oh, if the NBA is shutting down and the NCAA is calling off March Madness and all these other big events that are just part of day-to-day life in this country are being either canceled outright or postponed, then we should be taking this seriously. And so I think in the last week, like Andrew said, schools have been shutting down. I think today was the first day where, they kind of put a halt on religious services. So, people either had to miss church altogether or, do it via some electronic means. And so, yeah, like I've seen the craziness at the Walmarts and the Targets of the world. And it's just, I think the biggest thing for me, Wai, and I got to give a tip of the cap to Alex Patel, who you guys had on this past week, and who Marcus and I also talked to on the Kings of Sport, where we have to walk this fine line, I think, where we have to be serious, but we shouldn't be scared, right? We have to be prepared, but we shouldn't be panicked. And so I think that's everybody's kind of trying to find their equilibrium right now, once we're like into week 2 of this crisis.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that I'm bracing for that as much as anything. It's just the toll it'll have on the psyche and how people will react to it and how that'll affect our daily life. And I think that's to be expected. We can, kind of weather that storm. To what extent do you guys feel like that sort of panic is necessary in order for everybody to, make sure that, this whole predicament doesn't get worse?
Oh, you go ahead, kick it off, Nate.
I think that we definitely need to take this seriously, right? We definitely need to be vigilant, particularly when it comes to just doing the basic stuff. I can't believe that it feels like the world's needed a re-education on, personal hygiene and washing their hands over the past month or so. But it's like simple things like that, like being courteous and being cognizant of the people around you and kind of taking care of yourself and those that can't really take care of themselves. But in terms of just kind of keeping your emotions in check, I think that communication is going to be a big key over the next month. Things like this, things like, getting on the phone, talking to your friends, kind of finding a way to still have community, even if we can't physically be in contact with each other, I think is going to be important over the next, because that isolation, that sense of doubt, that sense of uncertainty could have a bad effect on people. And it doesn't help the situation here in America that our leadership seems to be giving out mixed messages. And so, like, to everybody in America, I would say, follow the advice of the experts, right? Even if the experts are telling you something different than what elected officials are, like, follow the scientists, follow the doctors, know what's, and again, just use common sense when it's your personal hygiene. So yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy, but I think that it's a situation where, yeah, it's going to get pretty dark this next week or so, but we're going to come out of that. We're going to come out of this. And as long as everybody keeps their cool and people kind of act like they got some sense and act like, we're all in this together, we can make that work, Andrew. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, just piggybacking off one of Nate's points about how I do agree. And I feel like the world has got sort of like a kick in the butt just about how important personal hygiene is and how seriously important it is for you to be taking care of yourself just as an individual, and then in turn of you taking care of yourself, you sort of in a way taking care of others in this situation. I do feel like people need to take the proper precautions just with this and everything going on to ensure the safety of everybody, honestly, because it's like this thing, the coronavirus is like, we don't truly know like how or like just any like you. It seems like you can contract this from just anywhere, just some simple as touching the door at a movie theater, because everybody's touching that, and it's like it makes you very nervous in a way. Like even from my own personal experience, it makes me nervous to even like when I go out and I touch stuff. Like I'm very cautious about it. Like I'll try to wrap my arm around it, or anything like that, or elbow it. Like it's something that is, I can tell, is like. Not to be over dramatic, but I do feel like it's kind of striking fear in a lot of people, and rightfully so. So, again, I think we do need to take the proper precautions with this, and I do think we'll make it out. I don't think it'll be like a 1 week, 2 week, 3 week thing, but it's going to take a while for this to blow over, and when it does, I think we need to continue those proper precautions. It's just personal hygiene. Everybody take care of themselves, and by doing that, you're taking care of others.
Man, I made the mistake last night of I sat, I had some free time, of course, and as many people were sitting down watching Netflix. My girlfriend suggests Contagion. So I sat down, watched that thing, and God, have you guys seen this thing? It's like, man, there's like they trace like where this thing like Gwyneth Paltrow comes from, and it's like these close-ups of her. Because okay, spoiler everybody, she dies because she's got the virus. Okay, and so like they like trace back her steps, and she's like touching the glass, and then like the busboy grabs the glass, and then he dies. She's like. Then the ashes of like the busboy's when the busboy gets cremated, his ashes are in like an urn, and then like the girlfriend from touching the urn dies. It's fucking crazy, and basically it's an entertaining movie, but yeah, maybe not the best choice to make to watch right now.
Well, happy birthday!
Oh, thank you.
That's how Wai celebrated his big birthday, was watching Contagion.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just discussing, Nate, before you guys jumped on here, that the Center for Disease Control has just put out a recommendation that for the next 8 weeks, they would advise against any large events that they are defining consist of 50 people or more throughout the United States. And, I think that opinions were somewhat mixed over the past week about the decisions, chiefly among companies that we're covering, from the UFC, WWE, AEW, to go ahead with these shows. I would say it's much more skewing towards one side at this point of these are the outliers that are choosing to go forward when much bigger sports leagues and entertainment outlets are pulling the plug. And I think that certainly there is a bit of a spotlight now on these combat sports or professional wrestling companies that are kind of pushing through here, and it feels kind of having a stubborn look at what science and experts are telling the world to be preventive regarding.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple ways you can look at it, John. Like, I think in terms of just TV, like I'm not talking about a large scale event like a WrestleMania or anything like that, but in terms of TV, I think that going on the information they had 3 days ago, which seems like a lifetime ago, given the way that this story has rapidly evolved and changed over the past week, I think you could make an argument that, like, okay, if we get to a secure location and we don't have any fans, or we limit the number of people here, we can tape a bunch of shows and we can have TV for a month, and that way, we'll live up to our obligation to our broadcast partners, and everything will be fine. I could see that. But now, again, with the CDC coming out and saying like 50, which kind of blew my mind a little bit, because again, you're thinking
like a closed set, like for Raw Monday night, like there's like that's not going to be under 50 people inside of that studio on,
just like
on Monday.
Everybody listening, like think about 50 people in a wall. That's not a lot. That's not a lot of people in that big space. And so, you're talking about school, church, most businesses, and so this has an effect on all industries, entertainment, food, the restaurant industry, the, banking. Like, so there's so many things kind of intertwined with this. I think that based on the information that we have now, like, it's time to shut it down. I believe, not knowing any of these people intimately, but I believe like Tony Khan will be like, we got to close up shop. Your boy Vince, that's a different story. Like I think Vince will eventually capitulate, but if this was 97, 98 when Vince was at his peak McMahonness, I think he would be stubborn till the bitter end.
Yeah, this is affecting literally everything. Just speaking on professional wrestling as a whole, I know everybody, like the majority of people, are waiting on the decision that WWE is going to make about, WrestleMania, and just what you guys were talking about, the limit of 50 people that I don't think that's going to work. But like how Nate just mentioned, Vince McMahon, he hasn't made the decision yet, and also there's a whole bunch of outliers within that WrestleMania. You have so many independent promotions who are just waiting on a decision because the amount of traffic that likely will be coming to their shows are deriving from WrestleMania. So if WrestleMania shuts down, then Lord knows how many people. I mean, how many people are going to travel just solely for those independent promotions, and then knowing that how much money they put into Mania week, and some of these promotions are literally banking on WrestleMania week and just emptying everything into it, and they depend on that amount of traffic to make that money back. So it's looking real bleak for a lot of independent promotions, just waiting on like bated breath on what WWE is going to do with WrestleMania, because if they decide to shut it down, some of these promotions they might be temporarily or permanently shutting down, because you dump so much money into these these hotels and flights for wrestlers and all this stuff, and you can't get that money back. So it's like you basically just hitting a big loss, and like you guys said, this is affecting literally everything. I think I saw that Dana White said UFC are going to continue to putting on shows, empty arena shows, I'm guessing. So we're going to see how that works out.
They're scrambling as we speak. They're searching for a venue because they can't go to England anymore for Saturday's card. There's numerous fighters that can't come overseas now because they were using a lot of European-based fighters on that card. They are contacting fighters to try and make up a card and find a venue to go ahead on Saturday. They've lost their main event because Leon Edwards cannot come over to fight Tyron Woodley, and Dana White has been, public in like Vince McMahon has not done any public statements about this, but Dana White has very much been the face of we are moving forward with everything unless there is a full shutdown and we're confined to our homes. Like, he is adamant about continuing, and I think has drawn a lot of criticism and justifiably so.
Yeah, like I didn't have a problem with them running the show Saturday night because, again, we're working with a moving set of facts, and so, yeah, the building sold, like, go ahead, even if there's nobody in there, let's do it. But then after that should have been it. There should have been no consideration of, okay, maybe we can do this again. It's like, no, at what point are you not only, endangering your image, right, your brand as a company, but the fighters, right, the people that are supposed to be your business partners in this, Dana White, what point are you willing to say, okay, for the good of these men and women that are coming out here to fight, I'm just going to call it off for the next month, the next 2 months, and then we'll pick back up after that.
Wade, did you get a chance to see SmackDown? Because we haven't discussed what you thought of how they went ahead with Friday's show.
I did watch it, yeah. I mean, I think I echo a lot of your sentiments that you and Mike shared. It was a show that was put together at the very last minute, and I think they did a very amicable job of like putting together something that felt like an empty arena SmackDown in any other arena in a short amount of time with a very limited crew. And I think it was a very curious watch, and therefore I was entertained by that. Whether or not the curiosity will last, through Monday and certainly into maybe another week of it, I really do have my doubts. Yeah, but it was certainly the best that they could do if the decision was to go ahead with the show.
I'm real interested to see how that's going to work out tomorrow, which will be Monday when they do it at the Performance Center for Raw, because that's amazing. You could kind of work with 2 hours of SmackDown, but 3 hours. A Monday Night Raw, like I'm pretty sure they'll have like a filler match, like how they aired the tag title match from Elimination Chamber. But it just seems like 3 hours is going to be like a much tougher task to hold the attention of people tuning into the show, opposed to 2 hours of SmackDown. And then that like how Wade just said, that original curiosity. I wonder what this is going to be like. Like, is it going to be bad? Is it going to be good? And stuff like that. But now that people have already seen it, it's like, okay, we're going to be able to see. But I'm very interested to see. AJ Styles and Undertaker do their contract signing in an empty arena. That's going to be real interesting.
The Austin Beer Bash by himself. Yeah. I mean, like, it's just, I don't know. To me, it was on Friday. I thought some of like the interview segments to me came off well. I thought in the Reigns case, it actually kind of enhanced it, that you didn't have the crowd that was trying to, that you had to work in like the pop breaks for and everything like that part worked. But I do feel you had a novelty to what is this show going to look like that is going to probably be exhausted by the end of Monday, and potentially, 3 hours of this coming up that, like you, Andrew, I think that they should be relying on, putting in some matches. I mean, the idea of, hey, next Monday, it's the broadcast premiere of last year's WrestleMania, an edited down version. I mean, there's so few, like, there's no sports going on right now. I think that you could probably do a pretty good number just with promoting for a week that WrestleMania on broadcast television next week, because there's not a whole lot of people are seeking entertainment, but I think they want to have that peace of mind that these performers are not, going and putting themselves at risk in order to put these shows on as well. And I feel like this decision may not be WWE's to make for much longer, and potential travel restrictions within the U.S. that could be an option coming down.
Yeah, like while I agree, I agree that what what Wai was saying about SmackDown, like it was admirable of them to go out there under those trying circumstances and pull that off. Like, as somebody that's been in some weird situations during broadcast, like I get that, and I respect them. But I think being the worldwide leader in professional wrestling or sports entertainment, however you want to categorize it, they need to take a page out of the worldwide leader in sports book. And what ESPN started doing, I believe last night, maybe this morning, but instead of just running like hours on end of sports centers that are just basically interviews with coaches that can't meet with their teams or players that are worried about the coronavirus, and instead of doing that, they've started going into their own catalog and airing 30 for 30s.
Sure.
And there's even talk that one of the most anticipated programs that they have this year is this big, huge 6 or 7 part series on the Jordan Bulls. And it was supposed to come out in the summer. And there's talk of them moving it up to next week or the following week. And so, like, there's a lot of ways to draw interest to your product without actually having to physically put people in harm's way. And, when you talk about the WWE, one of the things that Wai always talks about is, regardless of what you want to say about their booking or their storylines, their production is second to none. And there's so many documentaries or features or, old pay-per-view events that you could air in that time slot on USA that would still, it might not do what a live Raw would do, but you'll still get a good amount of viewers, because what else are wrestling fans going to do in this time except watch wrestling? We're stuck at home, a lot of us. And so it's like, if you put something on that's interesting, yeah, we'll watch it, even if it isn't live wrestling.
I'm very curious because ESPN on Saturday, they had the live card from Brazil, but they were bookending that by re-airing the Conor McGregor-Donald Cerrone fight from January. Yep. I'm really curious to see how that fight does in comparison to a live event, and if it's even comparable. I think that message is being sent that it's a lot easier to just hit play than to be going to all of these other extraordinary circumstances to try and put together and piece together a card for this Saturday, when you have endless content that you can put out there, and you can run a lot of Conor McGregor fights, and people might just be down to watch historical stuff as well. Nothing is ideal about this situation. Yeah.
I will say, I think, the struggle with sports, and really the appeal of sports is its relevancy. And, even something like Conor and Cowboy, that's a fight that people have never seen on broadcast before, and it's still relatively current because it is the last Conor McGregor fight. Even like what they did on SmackDown with the Elimination Chamber, that's current. How long can you go with that? Can you draw that same level of attention if it was like, airing a classic match from like 10 years ago or a year ago even, at a point where I don't know if you would have as much curiosity. That said, though, I'm also curious to know like how they could repackage something to make it relevant. having like, Stone Cold watch along with you, Stone Cold versus The Rock, something that
Triple H
new.
on commentary for everything, including UFC.
Sure. Something like that. These are all things that I've always wanted them to do more of on the WWE Network itself. Not just, airing an old pay-per-view for the sake of doing it, but repackaging it in a way to make it relevant and feel fresh.
They say WWE, they out here stealing Impact Wrestling ideas because if anybody knows, Impact does that every week with their TV show. They add a classic match for like 30, 40 minutes. And it's always a piece of their programming, but I think WWE, they could easily get creative with a situation like this, like the filler a time slot on Monday Night Raw. How about you use your Twitter account or your social media channels and say, hey, which match or from our past, from our catalog, would you guys want to watch on the USA Network to fill that time? And then you could get a better gauge of what will keep an audience opposed to you just throwing on some random match that nobody care about. Like, I think it would be real good for them. Like, if you put up a suggestion, like, you guys want to watch a Royal Rumble from whatever year, go ahead and watch that and stuff like that. But let me ask you this. Do you guys think that it would be good for WWE to go like on a, like, because they never had an off season before. Do you think it would be a good time for them to have this off season and just hit a hard reset on everything and come back fresh, new storylines, new champions, everything, whenever they do decide to resume?
Hard reset in the sense that, like a Vince Russo hard reset, like all the champions are
listen, bro, we're gonna change up the whole script. We're tearing everything up and throwing it out. It's a new year.
Oh my goodness. It's hard for me to see that happening. Like, I don't see championships being refreshed. I mean, they've gone through all this work of building these storylines heading towards WrestleMania. So I think in some way you will see those matches play out whenever things get back to normal. But is it a chance to, you hear like us complain every single week, there's way too much wrestling. Well, we're not going to have that problem, certainly. I
do feel like there is kind of the opposite effect of this, that, to Andrew's point, that there is going to be this pent up demand once they are ready to come back. And whether that's 2 months from now, we don't know. But to me, it's, once people, I think, are back to a semblance of normalcy, that WrestleMania to me could be a very big show, because it represents, like, here's our big comeback show. All the angles have been shot. This is the card that everybody had been waiting for, and it's been delayed by several months, several weeks. And the idea that you come back with a bang and almost present it as like WWE's return, because people are, that demand is so high that you could have the opposite effect, that losing it, that to me is the argument that the idea of doing a empty arena WrestleMania, it's why? Like, what are we really accomplishing by just putting together such a watered down version of what will be a big show when you are able to present it in the way that people want to consume that show?
And honestly, I think that in some way, this is actually beneficial to these storylines, because I don't know how you guys have felt, but outside of Edge Orton and maybe Rhea and Charlotte, I haven't been too high on this card. And so now you have time, like, to kind of go back to what we were talking about, like, what are they going to air for the next few months? I think, like, if you pick the key players of your WrestleMania matches and maybe have them host a night, where Drew McIntyre, these are Drew McIntyre's 5 matches that influenced him the most. And Drew is like our guide, and in the interstitials, he's talking about Brock Lesnar and why this particular match ties back to him and Brock's feud. And I think there's a way that you could still progress these stories and actually slow down and tell a better story than they've been telling week to week on their television.
Are you literally pitching the Drew McIntyre countdown?
There you go. There you go, John Pollock. Exactly. That's what we need. Just Drew McIntyre counting down every week his top matches, eventually leading us to WrestleMania.
They sort of got something similar to that on the I think on the WWE Network. I think it's called Break It Down or something like that. Like when they have, like I think Kevin Owens was one of the guests. Like he broke down his top 5 favorite matches, and there's stuff like that. But I think that would be a real solid idea, just to gauge interest for the people that will be competing at this WrestleMania event whenever it takes place.
Like, there's stuff you can do. Like, I understand, Wai makes a great point in that, where's the relevancy if we're not having live action? But the good thing about wrestling, or what should be the good thing about wrestling, if you promoted your characters right, is that the in-ring is only half of the story. We should be caring about, these characters, these personalities. And so, like, how great would it be if we had, Kofi one week just running us back through? I know that they've done something on the network, but how many people have actually seen that? Like, run back Kofi talking about the lead up to Kofi Mania last year, or do something where, Triple H, since he's flourishing in this new commentator role, like John was saying, like Triple H and Stone Cold, or Triple H and Rock. They're not gonna get to Rock, but work with me here, people. Like Triple H and whoever he feels his greatest opponents are, they talk over one of their matches. Like, I think there's ways you can still keep the audience interested. Like, you might not retain all of your viewers, but you shouldn't lose a whole lot if you're still giving them interesting stories to watch every week.
A few other topics I was thinking of today ahead of our discussion tonight is, I would say, even 3 weeks ago, I think we're looking at what a great time this is, that if you're a wrestler whose contract is coming due, and the idea that there's so much demand out there, primarily from WWE and AEW, for all available talent. And it's a great time if your contract is coming due now. Do either of you, I'll throw it out to everybody, see almost that, these companies, they don't know how long they're not going to be able to be doing live events, and economically how this is going to affect them. And if you're an independent wrestler out there, it could be a very bad period for you. Do you see kind of a reverse effect from a lot of guys that were seeking free agency, that now the idea of being under contract and having that security is going to be something that a lot of talent is going to be taking a much more closer look at, in terms of, just an act of God that we're seeing right now, where being under contract certainly has its advantages and ability to at least sleep at night and not worry about your paycheck.
Absolutely. I think that, we saw this with the NFL, where the Players Association just signed a new CBA agreement. And last week, the talk was there was a good number of players that really weren't comfortable with it, that wanted to go back and change some of the language in the deal. But given the fact that there's so much uncertainty now with the coronavirus, they were able to get it through. And I think that if you're somebody whose contract is coming up, or you're negotiating right now, like, yes, obviously the grass is always greener on the other side. And if you're a talent that really hasn't been doing a whole hell of a lot in the WWE, AEW looks really good right now. But by the same token, you know what looks even better than AEW, Andrew Thompson?
What?
Food on the damn table. And so if I have to, re-up for another year or two just to make sure that I've got that steady stream of income coming in, then that's what I've got to do. Because, like when your situation changes, when the world situation changes, then your outlook on these contracts will probably change as well. So I could see a lot of people who might have been leaning towards leaving the WWE to check out AEW or even New Japan or something like that. They're like, you know what? It's better to dance with the devil, because the unknown out there is a scarier proposition.
Yeah, you have so many independent wrestlers, like even the ones I follow on social media, like they essentially out of work for the time being, so they got to promote merch, they got to launch websites and launch Patreons and stuff like that, and that's all well and dandy, and that's all good, but it doesn't match what they usually make from from a compensation standpoint. Just from the shows that they do on a consistent basis. And some of them are tied into, like an Impact Wrestling and stuff like that. And then on top of that, they have independent bookers, and now all that's cut off. And now they got to find different ways of income like that. I remember one time I was watching this interview that Xavier Woods did, and he was just like constantly reiterating that how important it is to have an outside business or some type of side hustle outside of professional wrestling, because he just was never sure how long it was going to last. And this was when New Day was like at the top of the top. He was just like, I just want to be sure that I can have, that outside source of income whenever, if a situation like this were to arise. And even though he's still under contract with WWE, but, the point still stands. Like, you got a guy like up the top, like Ethan Page, who has his own YouTube channel, who's growing that. You got people like Thunder Rosa, who's launching her own YouTube channel and, revenue and all that. I think it's very important for wrestlers, I think for independent wrestlers specifically, to now start to look at that life after wrestling type thing. Like, even though they're focused on the now, it's very important to look at your future and, start building businesses and, other things that can provide you with, multiple streams of income after your career.
That's the sort of thing, like a side effect of all this that kind of like, in a way, excites me, because I feel like wrestlers are a group of people that are insanely creative.
Yeah.
And, always, I think part of the problem, we've seen the success of people with YouTube channels and what it's done for their careers whenever they're able to do it successfully. But the problem is that, number one, it takes a lot of time to put a good YouTube channel out there. It takes a lot of hours to put videos up, or whatever sort of your social media game is. Secondly, your audience's attention is so divided because there's so much other wrestling out there to watch. Well, now there isn't. Now you get to make the content yourself, and you have an audience that will likely be craving fresh new content that WWE might not be necessarily providing in a traditional sense, that AEW might not be providing in a traditional sense. But if I want to fill an hour of my time, what do? Maybe I'll go on, Thunder Rosa's YouTube channel or something like that. It's an opportunity for a lot of people to create their own brands, when they're inactive in other ways. But, going as far as talking about like, I think you were talking about, John, like, are people going to be more likely to sign with like a full-time company? What we're talking about here is just like, how much more people are people going to be willing to take risks coming out of this? What we're talking about right now is like something that is traumatic. It will be traumatic, and it is already traumatic for a lot of people, not just in pro wrestling, but like, people like traders, people who have portfolios that are like, a lot more high risk. I think this is going to be a wake up call for a lot of people to perhaps invest a lot more in bonds or something like that. People who don't usually have insurance policies for whatever line of work they're in. I think they're going to think twice coming out of this. So that'll certainly affect a lot of people. And yeah, I absolutely see a lot of people perhaps considering full time if that's an option for them in professional wrestling. Maybe some people on a lower level might be getting out of professional wrestling altogether coming out of this.
There could be. Yeah, I mean, for all businesses, there's going to be, an enormous effect that this is all going to have. And I would say that will be something to look at too, is, the attitude that some independent wrestlers may have that, at a time they may have thought, I don't want to be working for a major company. I like having my schedule versus, okay, I've gone through this. I don't want to go through something traumatic like this ever again. And what are the offers going to be like? I mean, if this is a significant hit on WWE and AEW, are those big offers going to be fewer and far between as well coming out of this? That's, all of this is kind of secondary to what everyone's going through now. But whenever there is something enormous like this, there is always the residual effects that could be months and years in terms of how long it's felt for. That the pendulum, to me, it always tends to shift and won't level off for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How about the idea as well that, when they do come back at some point, is there a certain responsibility, Nate, do you find, if you are the WWE or any of the industry leaders that you look at, AEW as well, by extension, any companies, that having a certain look at kind of why we operate in the ways that we do? Like, a lot of this, you look at it a week ago, I don't know how many people are looking at the idea of, Tetsuya Naito spitting in someone's face, but it's going to be a different world when they come back, that I think you can assess a lot of different scenarios that we just take as commonplace in pro wrestling that may be looked at with more of a scrutinized look after the world has gone through this pandemic.
I think, John, whenever something like this happens, and I'm even going to broaden it out outside the world of wrestling, you'd like to think that everybody will be able to take a look at what's happened, take a look at the causes of what's happened, and change accordingly, and be able to evolve after that traumatic event or that time of crisis. But the reality is, everybody's not going to do that, because human beings are stubborn by nature. So the best you can hope for, John, and then this is Mr. Glass Half Full here, the best you can hope for is that some people will change because of this, that some people will differ and alter the way they do business as a result of this. And so, yeah, I'd like to think that Vince will change, but I'm not holding my breath. I'm a little more optimistic and a little bit more hopeful for AEW, because Tony Khan does seem like somebody who, even though he's not perfect, even though he hadn't made all the right choices, he seems more willing to listen to public opinion and listen to, maybe some of the concerns his employees might have. So maybe that'll change. But honestly, I think the biggest difference might actually come from the independent companies out there. The biggest difference might actually come from the companies who will have to improve in order to make sure they keep that workforce in place. And also, I think the workers will have to start speaking out for themselves a little bit more. Obviously, you want that job security. Obviously, you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to be a malcontent. But as, we saw during, and this is obviously a different subject matter, but as we saw during the Jordan Miles ACH thing, sometimes you have to be the squeaky wheel in order to get greased. Sometimes you have to be a malcontent because that's the way things get set in motion sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so I think, honestly, what I would love to see out of this is maybe the workers speaking up for themselves a little bit more and the companies doing the right thing by their workforce. But I'm not holding my breath. Like humans have been through so many things, John Pollock. They've been through war and famine and drought and pestilence and anger and fear and avarice, greed and racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia, Vince Russo's Nitros from the year 2000. There's so many things that you would think would change human nature, John, but here we are kind of in the same place that we've always been.
Do you believe, Andrew, like we've focused a lot on kind of the top companies, but I mean, certainly the questions are there about whether, companies, Impact, MLW, kind of those secondary promotions that are out there as well. I mean, certainly in the case of Impact, they have like a large ownership group behind them. Oh, yeah. But I mean, it's going to affect everybody. The big question is the degree in which this is going to affect all the other companies that don't necessarily have the same level of, financing behind them.
Yeah, like you said, like Impact, the MLWs of the world. I think they'll make it through this. I think they'll be fine. Because of course Impact, they have access behind them, and I think they'll continue to push forward throughout this situation. MLW, they might have a bit of a rougher time, but I still think they'll be able to make it through. Like when you're looking at independent promotions like AEW, so many Glory Pro, like promotions like that run once a month, maybe twice a month. Like Black Label Pro, those type of promotions. I think it'll be rougher for them because they again they rely on the ordering of their events on these streaming services, and now they don't have the opportunity to earn that money, and it's going to be so difficult for them to bounce back. And hopefully this situation blows over quickly, even though I don't think it will. I hope it blows over in a good enough time so those promotions won't have so much of a hit, because I really think this thing is going to seriously do some damage to professional wrestling as a whole, but I think it will do even greater damage to the independent wrestling scene. It's looking real. It's just not looking too good right now for the independent scene and for those promotions that just rely on those monthly shows for income to continue to build on to the next show past that next monthly show. It's so much into this one thing. And not even just stepping outside the world of professional wrestling. You looking at the NBA. I even saw a recent report from one of their reporters, Adrian Wojnarowski. He tweeted out that the NBA they're considering, and this is likely is going to happen. They're not considering resuming the season until June or July. And even when they do, they're talking about having no fans in attendance. Period. And that's because the NBA finals usually take place in July, so that's delaying the season back even more. And then you dipping into the NFL territory. It's a lot of stuff going on, man, and it's going to be real interesting to see how things play out. But hopefully things going back to wrestling, hopefully things sort of progress smoothly over the next couple of weeks, so those independent promotions won't fall out.
Do you guys think, certainly on this side of the world, we're reaching, we're headed, we're not even at, but we're headed towards, I think, the peak of what this thing might look like. But perhaps in Asia, do you guys feel like the story might be a little bit different? Do you think we'll start to see some form of recovery from, New Japan Pro Wrestling or any of the other promotions over there?
Oh, for sure, 100%. Like I've even seen like videos from I think it's this one website. I think it's called AJ Plus. Like they post like inspirational videos, like and just things of the such. But I saw a video that they're doing in China, and they're like completely like taking care of the city. Like I see them like hosing like multiple things down around the city, like quarantining the city, making sure everybody's good. And like they're saying that China might make just they're going to improve the fastest out of most areas in the world. Like and like I think Asia is going that specific area. They're going to bounce back rather quickly. And then I don't necessarily know as far as New Japan Pro Wrestling goes. I don't necessarily know if they were ahead of the curve. Well, maybe they were in regards to this, or it just got to them first, or maybe they were ahead of the curve, either one. But I think they're going to bounce back fairly quickly, and I think everything is going to once it improves. Basically, I just think it's going to improve in those areas very, very quickly, opposed to how it's going to be in this area where we're at.
Well, speaking like China, like I was watching Rachel Maddow the other night, because I don't only watch wrestling, ladies and gentlemen, and she had a physician on, and he was basically going step by step of the measures that they took in order to tamp down the virus. And it was just fascinating. And it's, again, you can have your disagreements with the way the Chinese government conducts themselves, but in terms of the way they handled this, it's night and day than from how the U.S. government took care of things, where even as recently as 2 weeks ago, some people in the government was calling this make-believe. They was calling it a fairy tale. They was calling it a hoax. It's just a work, brother. It's not a shoot. But now it's like, you probably should have been listening to the experts. You probably should have been paying attention. So like I said off the top, guys, I think that we're just kind of heading into the tunnel right now, and it'll probably, again, I'm no expert, I'm no doctor, I don't even play one on TV, but we're probably in for a good 8 weeks of hard times, but I think the thing is, as long as people are diligent about taking care of themselves and the people around them, as long as people can kind of keep reasonably calm about this, as long as people can listen to the correct information that is being presented by people in the medical field, I think we'll be all right. The problem becomes when you have disinformation spread. The problem becomes when you have people stirring up fears. The problem becomes when you have people kind of intensifying and fanning the flames of hysteria. That's when you get into a situation that is more serious than it needed to be in the first place. So I'm hoping that cooler heads will prevail. I'm hoping that our better angels will rise up, and we'll get through this together.
Well, guys, I want to thank both of you for taking some time out of your schedules tonight to join us. We definitely wanted to bring you guys on to chat and give people some insight in as well to what you guys are going through as well. So, Andrew, we look forward to hearing from you this week up at postwrestling.com. Nate, you will be back on Saturday with the Rocky Maivia Picture Show. And is there anything else you've got going on?
Yes, Saturday I'll be back with the Rocky Maivia Picture Show. Tentatively scheduled to have Brian Mann on, bringing back the Keep It 2000 squad, firing up the satellite ahead again. So we'll. If I'm able to get a hold of Brian, if we're able to make our schedules connect, we're going to be reviewing. We're doing a double feature with the other guys, as well as I believe Pain and Gain. I have to double check my notes, but we'll be doing a double feature. But in terms of everything else I got going on, like I know this might be a rough time for the postmarks out there, but if you do happen to be stuck inside, if you can't go into work and you're trying to figure out what to do around the house, might I suggest, with all humility here, ladies and gentlemen, might I suggest that you take $5 out your pocket right now and head over to the Kings of Sport Patreon. Myself and brother Marcus Vanderberg, we recently did a show that's up for free on the Patreon feed where we talked to Alex Patel, who you guys and girls heard on the Post Wrestling Cafe this past week. That's up there. There's a bunch of various shows with politics. Tonight they're having the Democratic debate. Chris from LA and I just recently did a show talking about Bernie and Biden. There's a Tyson Fury.
The Nubian Wrestling Advocates.
Yes, the Nubian Wrestling Advocates, the most recent episode featured Andrew Thompson. So
Yes, sir.
there's a lot up there. And yes, so like I think, if you're bored or if you just like hearing my voice and want some of that positivity in your life, it can be yours for a low price. And I'm excited because I think a side effect of this is we might be getting some like super interesting podcasts because, as Andrew mentioned, there's a lot of independent wrestlers with lots of time on their hand now. And so like, they need outlets, and we all need a place to kind of express ourselves and talk through these things and get through this as a community. So yeah, check out the Kings of Sport. Check out John and Wham Post Wrestling. Check out Andrew on YouTube. The brother doesn't promote himself enough. Check out Andrew on YouTube. He's done some great interviews this year.
Yeah, Andrew, where can people go subscribe to the channel?
Andrew Thompson interviews on YouTube, and you can follow me on Twitter at AD Thompson. I actually got an interview coming out tomorrow. And I'm going to be interviewing a very, very, very special lady tomorrow as well. Like, I'm very excited to put this young lady's story out there. I don't think a lot of people know who she is, but she's a fellow African-American referee based in she's based on the West Coast. So I'm very interested to put her story out there, and hopefully that leads to her, getting some more attention on her, because I just found her story very interesting. So I'm very excited to put that out. And you catch the written version on Post Wrestling as well.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining Wai and I tonight. And we look forward to hearing from all of you on your respective platforms and outlets, and hopefully here as well.
Hey, John, real quick. I don't want to be so strident on this opinion, but you and Brother Ting just had your birthdays. Happy birthdays, my brother.
Happy birthdays, man.
Now that we've learned, now that we're going through this crisis together as a global community, can we once and for all put a moratorium on the trick birthday candles? Why you spitting all up on my cake, man? It's not healthy. That's not what we're doing right now. So no more birthday candles in general. Just cut birthday candles out of the equation, Wai Ting.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was given a birthday cake this week with a candle, and I opted to not blow the candle out. I did an imaginary blowing of the candle. Oh, I mean, listen, you and I have both spoken to Dr. Patel. Droplets. I'm
yes.
so conscious of droplets. Anytime I see two people talking to each other now, I'm like watching for those little specks of spit coming out of people's mouths. I'm so sensitive to droplets now. So no, absolutely for now, for the next several weeks, people, blow your candles out somewhere else. Not on me. Not on my cake. Not on your cake. Away from the food, please.
There's so much now that just going out for regular things that you do in your day that you're watching now with completely different eyes. It's like everyone is being reprogrammed now. And I don't know what our society is going to look like 6 months from now, of things that we did not even think twice about that are going to be considered outrageous 6 months from now.
Like even so much as, giving somebody like a high five or, dapping them up. Like, I can't even do that no more. Like, people going to have to learn to respect the fist bump or catch the elbow. Like, it's no more me dapping you up. No, like, you know how people try to dap up and bring in a hug. Like, don't do that. Just give me the elbow, give me the fist bump. You got to respect it.
No more dapping, John.
Listen, if this eliminates the handshake, I will be the first one to be waving goodbye to the handshake. I mean, that can be one thing where we can all just move on. I have never been a fan of the handshake.
You said the hugs, we know.
No, we can. That's retired as well. So, guys, thank you so much for.
Wait, real quick, John. I don't know when the next time I'm gonna be able to be on a podcast with you. So I gotta ask, can we get a recite of the DJ Joe?
No,
I knew that's where you were going. I
don't know when's the next time I'm gonna be on the Post Wrestling Cafe or the podcast with you, Wai or Nate. I need to.
15-year anniversary.
Braden Harrington has offered to put out a remix, John, if you willing to get back on the track.
Let me just say that it is just the happiest moments of my week every other week when someone discovers my sketch comedy bit that I had to put together for a university project that I have been such a good sport about leaving out there. This was done, Andrew, in 2006, which I'm not even sure if you were born by 2000. But believe me, that would be what present day kids would be calling a banger, because
the only spitting that we are allowing during this time of the coronavirus is DJ Joe Post spitting hot fire.
All right, this is where we say goodbye.
Bars.
The song wasn't even bad, man. I'm telling you, it wasn't. It was a good song.
So it'll be a while before we let Andrew and Nate back on one of these shows.
I am recommending at least 8 weeks before we have groups of 2 or more on the show.
Just self-distancing on the podcast.
No, guys, there's always seats at the table here. Just no handshakes. We always love having both of you on, and thanks for joining us. So thank you again to Nate Milton and Andrew Thompson. That was a really great chat. I was glad we got to get both of them on tonight.
I hope to do it a bit more often during all this time. It's great to talk to those guys.
I love doing roundtables. I prefer doing them in person because sometimes it's very hard when you've got 4, but that went really well.
Maybe we could do like video even. Like that might make it less awkward, but yeah, it also depends on I think the chemistry, and we've spoken to both those guys, usually, and they're clearly very aware of you and your past. So I think that helps.
Before we get on out of here, so Raw is on for Monday night. We've got Steve Austin on the show. He is en route to Orlando, as is Edge, who announced that it sounds like he is driving there, which is 9 hours from North Carolina. So that sounds fun. And then we've got the contract signing with The Undertaker and AJ Styles. Like, they are pushing this as like a regular, like a big edition of Raw. And
they're proceeding as if WrestleMania is still a go. And man, that'll be the most interesting part of it.
Well, that to me was like a disconnect on SmackDown, and I think it's going to be even more the case on Monday, is that, yeah, you're building for a show that I don't think most of your audience believes is happening on that day.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. I mean, internal policy right now seems to be we're going ahead until they tell us we can't. I mean, shit. I don't know. I have no idea what that's going to look like. I have no idea what the world is going to look like in 4 weeks.
That's... It's only the preventive measures are only increasing. Like, I don't know what we're going to be talking about in 24 hours, but it's going to be different than what it is at this moment.
Yeah. I mean, no matter what, I suppose, they do have these scripts written out. I mean, what else are they going to do? Just have random matches? So, they might actually do that, because how else are they going to fill these 3 hours?
All right, that's going to wrap things up. Wai and I will be back on Monday night with Rewind to Raw, and we do have our regular schedule of shows this week. I don't think we're going to be impacted unless we're talking about no more new wrestling or MMA cards, which at least this week they are moving forward with. But in the event of that, I mean, Wai and I have been discussing alternate plans, so we don't have any plans to slow down on shows. We have lots of different ideas that we're ready to lean on. So if need be, we're planning to be doing shows regular, regardless of what we're covering.
As long as John and I have our voices, as long as we have our health, as long as I have an internet connection, you can guarantee there will be a podcast in your podcast player in the morning, whenever you expect it, maybe even more than usual. So, in fact, I mean, I'm even kind of open to hearing some ideas, but let's just wait and see what the wrestling schedule turns out to be so far.
So in the meantime, you can go to postwrestling.com. Any new updates, status of various shows, that will all be up on the website, so you can look forward to that. Thank you again to Andrew Thompson and Nate Milton for joining us, and do go check out their respective outlets. Andrew Thompson interviews on YouTube, patreon.com/Kings of Sport. They do some fantastic shows. They are must listens for me, whether it's Nate with Chris in LA or Nate and Marcus. They've got a great series of shows to check out.
Definitely.
And Wai, just tweet Wai again if you missed his birthday on Saturday. A happy birthday, Wai.
You do not have to do that, but thank you for everybody who wished either a John or myself a happy birthday. It was quite the memorable birthday week, I will say. So It's times like these where I think it's really nice to be able to know that we have this kind of community that we built up online. It's a really shitty time, but I feel like we're more prepared to handle something like this than, the human race has ever been before. And much of that is because of, I think, what we have through the internet. So I look forward to seeing what changes come. And I'm keeping positive, I think.
I think that's what you need to do. I mean, in a strange way, as we are kind of moving towards, like, everyone feels like they're isolated from everybody, but just being out walking today, everybody's in the same boat. Everybody is going through this in varying degrees at the moment. And in a weird way, everyone's united by this as well. And I think that there is some solace to take in that no one is going through this alone. And I'm not going to get too spiritual, but we will get through this. So thanks to everybody for listening. Appreciate our guests for stopping by, and we will speak with you Monday night.
Namaste.